mid-19th century, the Reverend Samuel Manning visited the land of the Pharaohs and recorded his experience in words and pictures. Not photographs, but detailed and intricate line drawings. The result was published in 1875. The pictures that follow all come from this remarkable book, and the narrative is taken from the words of the author. Hebrew patriarchs, Greek philosophers, Persian, Macedonian and Roman conquerors have all been drawn hither, and its annals are inextricably woven with theirs. What wonder then that it was with a feeling of almost reverential awe that I first gazed upon the soil which for 4,000 years had been the scene of such memorable deeds. Anywhere except in Egypt, Alexandria would be regarded as a very ancient city. Its history goes back well over 2,000 years. It is now a busy, thriving port in which the East and West meet in strange confusion. Groups of people are seen sitting under the shadow of a palm grove, utterly indifferent to the intense heat which makes the atmosphere quiver like the mouth of a furnace. Veiled women come down to the river to fill their water jars, and then, poising them on their heads, walk away with a firm, graceful step. The productiveness of the soil is mainly dependent on artificial irrigation. The water is stored in canals and reservoirs and distributed over the soil by various devices. Sometimes a large wheel is run out into the river. The floats of the wheel are made hollow so as to take up water. As they rotate, the contents of each are poured into a trench or tank on the river bank. A more common method is the sakya. Camel or buffalo plod round a worn path, turning a series of wheels, cogged and creaky, drawing up an endless and dripping string of earthenware vessels, which splash out their crystal gatherings into one leaky and common pool. More common than either is the shadoof, a primitive contrivance consisting only of a long pole working on a pivot, a lump of clay or stone fixed at one end, a bucket at the other. For hundreds of miles up the Nile, the river is lined with these shadoofs. Men, women and children spending their whole lives lifting water out of the bountiful river to irrigate their fields. As the delta approaches its southern apex at Cairo, the tawny line of desert which bounds it on either side draws nearer. Then, through the quivering haze, are the pyramids. Cairo lies at the entrance of the Nile Valley. Those who wish to see the Cairo of romance and the Arabian Nights entertainments should lose no time in visiting it, for it is being improved off the face of the earth. The new quarter is but a shabby reproduction of modern Paris. In a few minutes we pass into the labyrinthine windings of bazaars, which are almost unchanged since the days of Saladin, and in which the Grand Vizier and the chief of his eunuchs might have wandered and found little to surprise them. Veiled women, black slaves, Bedouin sheikhs, pashas, water carriers, blind beggars, Greek and Coptic priests, donkeys and street sellers innumerable make up the picturesque and bewildering throng. In the suburbs of Cairo are charming villas, each standing in a garden, rich in all the products of a semi-tropical country and abundantly supplied with water. Continuing our ramble along the banks of the Nile, we visit the Nilometer. The date of its construction is commonly ascribed to the time of the Caliph Mamun, AD 813 to 833. A graduated pillar rises in the centre, indicating in cubits the height to which the inundation reaches. A good Nile, as it's called, is from 18 to 22 cubits. Less than this leaves the soil insufficiently irrigated. More than this drowns the country. Every morning, during the rise of the river, criers go throughout Cairo proclaiming the level. When the proper height has been attained, the dams are cut, allowing water to flow into the canals, and the universal rejoicings prevail throughout the city. Perhaps there is no place in the immediate vicinity of the city which is visited with deeper interest than the citadel. It stands on a rocky eminence which rises to the east of Cairo, and commands a magnificent view extending over the city, the desert and far down the Nile Valley, which winds like a silver thread through the strip of verdure which constitutes Egypt. In this wonderful view, the pyramids certainly form the most impressive feature. Vast and imposing as are the pyramids, it is important to remember that we do not see them in their original condition. For centuries they furnished quarries out of which modern Egyptians have built their cities. An Arab physician, writing in the 12th century, when the casing stones were still in place, says, "These stones are covered with writing in that secret character whose import to this day is wholly unknown." One of these inscriptions is said by Herodotus to have recorded that 1,600 talents of silver were expended in purchasing radishes, onions and garlic for the workmen. If, as we stand on the plain of Giza, we would picture to ourselves the scene which it presented in the time of the Pharaohs, we must conceive of the three pyramids as huge masses of highly polished granite, the area around them covered with pyramids and temples, amongst which the Sphinx rose in solemn, awful grandeur. It is difficult, however, to abandon oneself to the full enjoyment of the scene. The gift of a shilling to the sheikh, on condition that he allowed no one to speak to me for a quarter of an hour, at length secured a brief interval of quiet, in which I abandoned myself to the undisturbed enjoyment of the scene and its associations. In the 4,000 years over which the history of Egypt extends, what generations have lived and died? What empires have risen and flourished and decayed? Full of the biblical references you'd expect from a Victorian man of the cloth, it is, nevertheless, a rich source of eyewitness observations of a frequently humorous nature. It records a moment in time and allows us a fascinating glimpse into the lives of long forgotten and, historically speaking, insignificant figures.